Good morning, friends. It's Dr. Bill, and today I wanted to excitingly share with you a pirate dude that a professional artist friend of mine made. And all I gave him was a picture of this little pirate that I got at the Dollar Tree. And I told him that I wanted to turn him from a little potato head into an actually human with color coded content so that we could use what TEA gives us as an aligned rubric slash scoring guide about what is going to give us each score in terms of organization and development, because in that area we can get a 0, a 1, a 2, or a 3 from two different readers. And on conventions, we can get a 0, a 1, or a 2 from two different readers or automated scoring engines. Now, 2 years ago, past tense, I made a rubric that I thought was pretty good. I call it a quick check rubric because so many of you were telling me you're having to grade a ton of essays every single week because some people don't understand that the process of writing is a lot more important than the product. In other words, that we should be writing an entire product, an entire essay every single week instead of saying, hey, maybe at the beginning I should write one every month or every 6 weeks, then maybe 5 weeks, and then 4 weeks, and 3 and 2 and 1, that we slowly build on the process so that we as teachers have time to improve both the quality and the quantity of the essay. Last year, I improved the scoring guide so you could separate the components of organization development from conventions from the two different readers, so that if you really did have two readers like we are supposed to, then they're able to both put in their feedback and suggestions as grader 1 and grader 2. So before I show you Mr. Potato Head, let me remind some of you who received that last year. When I looked at the rubric, I didn't like the fact that it took 3 pages to tell you how to get a 0, 1, or a 2, or a 3 in organization development, and those same 3 pages on how to get a 0, 1, or a 2 in conventions, and then how to talk about pairs in the low grades, the upper grades, and argumentative. Well, instead of 3 pages for one essay, I have 1 page where two different readers, if you want to call the blue reader grader 1 and the black reader grader 2, and then they have a combined score, and it basically has check marks that your students can see that you did as you were grading their essay, so they can see what score did they get, and based on your check marks or your X's, why did they get that score? And if you want to even take it to the analytic portion, this is where last year's feedback looks different, where because organization and development bullets are different than conventions, then you can give organization and development feedback on the left side and conventions on the right side. And it's sort of like a prescription where either little band-aids for kids who are just trying to get from la la land to zero land or one land or two land, where you just put minor things just to move up a score point. Or if you have kids that are already in two land and you're trying to get them to get more 3s and 4s, you might give more specific feedback in terms of what they can do. And as you can see, it has a little dotted line there so that you can cut and separate and then staple this to the top of the printed essay if you decide to print one, or just give the kids a copy. That way they, before they work on the next essay, can work on and improve the quality of their organization, development, or conventions, or what I call the DOC, the development, the organization, and the conventions. Because if you're the teacher, the doctor, Bugs Bunny says, "What's up, Doc?" He doesn't say, "What's up, doctor?" So what you're trying to do is help them improve. And so my friend made this cool looking little pirate from the potato head one that I found at the Dollar Tree. So you can name him, but I called him just the title, The Process and the Product of ECR Pirate, and let your kids name him. So process, product, 2 P's. The next P, what purpose? Well, most of the students this past year got informative expository. What was the prompt, or what was the topic? And in the training this past Saturday, we learned how to break down topics into little pieces so the kids could put them back together to make what are known as, according to the rubrics, central idea statements. So the first bullet, I'm going to use his thumb for that. The first bullet says clearly state your central idea. Well, I see an I there. I need an idea. So look at my M&M. What is, see the W there? What is my idea about the topic? And so those of you that really love the acronyms that talk about topics, restating the topic, your kids are great at having the topic, but they don't have an idea that actually responds to it. And so when you teach your kids to find that word explain, it tells them what they're supposed to be explaining. It's the topic, the ways. What ways, plural, is soil important to the earth? In other words, why is it important to the earth? Or how is it important? Okay. The second bullet says, organize your essay. Make sure you have an introduction, and we'll call that his head. And a simple introduction might just be the central idea statement about the topic. Basic. Okay. Your body should be evidence that's explained based on the idea that you use about the topic. So I'm going to turn these M&Ms sideways here and say, okay, if my shirt in my body is my first piece of evidence that I use, maybe my pants might be a second piece of evidence, and my jacket might be the third piece. And why am I using yellow? It's because you highlight evidence that you find, and you can have more evidence if you want to. You can have one piece of evidence if you're a struggling writer, maybe 2, maybe 3, but the idea is for each piece of evidence, the third bullet, let me finish the second one first. The second bullet also says, that you probably need to have an ending. And I turned my M&M sideways to make sure we talk about an end or an ending. Did you stop the essay? Do you have closure? Do you have a closing or a conclusion that, like the laces on his shoes, ties everything together, such as the topic T, the idea E, the evidence E, the ending? But the third bullet says, make sure that you develop your ideas in detail. So in the body, if you're going to have a shirt, pants, and jacket, that's going to be three pieces of evidence that you explained, because you can see on the very top of his hat, it reminds you we are explaining, whether we're doing informative expository, we're explaining our idea about the topic, or in this case, the topic, and why we choose those ideas. And we're going to give examples of evidence from the text. And so there's where those one or two or three pieces of evidence come from. And because the third bullet says to develop your ideas in detail, what they're trying to say is develop, explain your evidence. So I have some green M&Ms, and because we can have kids who struggle, I might not be able to explain a piece of evidence with two or three or four sentences, but hopefully they can start off here by saying, you know what, whatever that piece of evidence is, I'm going to try my best to explain it with at least one sentence. Okay. If you have kids who can do it, then by all means, looking for a small M&M here, by all means, let them explain with two. And once again, I have the M turned into an E because you want to explain. Your belt is your transition. Your necklace is your transition to the body. Are you going to explain? So since his pants are blue, I'll use blue M&Ms. How many sentences did you explain that piece of evidence? Because for those of you who went to my trainings in the past, we said a little thing together. Each evidence, example, explain, and exploded. Well, that's to get to three land in terms of organization development. But we're just trying to get to one land and two land right now. So your kids might not have very much development. They might only have one or two sentences. But the prompt for third grade says, explain the ways that soil is important to the earth. One of the ideas that we'll discuss in another video is that it helps plants, bing, animals, bing, and people. Well, since that's three different ideas, it would be sort of like putting three red M&Ms in the idea section, because you're trying to use three different ideas to respond to that, whatever the topic is. And so you might have to spend some evidence saying, how do plants help the earth in terms of soil? How do animals help the earth based on soil? And the jacket, and since we got a purple in there, I've got to go to my little Skittles here, and do I have any purple? Oh yeah, they're in this other package here. Color coding my essay. Now, if you only want to stick to M&Ms, I do have some orange ones there. And the cool thing about Skittles and M&Ms is that both have they both have, and these are what I'm gonna call purple M&Ms, Skittles, I'm sorry. So you might have one or two or three sentences, and even had my friend make little white spots on the jacket and the shirt and the pants so that your students can see development. All right, because that is the third bullet. Now, reminder, the fourth bullet says to make sure that it's based on evidence. And so that's why I made sure that we started by looking for evidence as soon as we found out what the topic was and which W's, what were the ways that soil is important to the earth. And we had to go look for that. Well, Uh, it's important because of plants, because of animals, and because of people. And your kids who can accomplish that, that can write about all three. But for kids who struggle, you might say, you know what, just focus on plants, focus on animals or people, whichever one that you can explain the most based on the evidence that you see. Because writing an essay is this: writing between the lines. Inferring, rubbing my fur, is reading between the lines. But when you're writing or typing an essay, we have to type between the lines because the evidence is the lines, the ideas your students come up with in terms of the way they explain pieces of evidence. That would be my shirt. Did you explain it? My pants, did you try to explain it? My jacket, did you try to explain it? And then do you have an ending because of the way that organization works? Okay. The last bullet says make sure that you have proper spelling, capitalization, punctuation, grammar, and sentences. So that's why I've got another red shoe down there. Let me break out my red shoe. Did you make sure you took time to edit the essay? Because if you didn't edit the essay, then all of this development organization hurts the quality. So some students got 1 or 2 or 3 points in terms of development and organization, but because their editing, because their conventions were so bad, they got 0. For example, one of the ones that I talked about with Saturday's teachers was that they had maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 sentences, but they only had one period. Well, if you only have one period in your whole essay, you only have one sentence. So even if they did get 2 or 3 points in terms of organization development, they might get only 0 points because of conventions due to the fact that maybe there was only one period at the end of the entire essay, or maybe there weren't even any periods at all. And so Skittles, since they start with an S, and a sentence is like a street with a stop sign, you might use the S on the Skittle for sentences. How many stop signs do you have? Because if this is one sentence, then this would be the end of the street, which would have a stop sign known as a period. that stops the complete thought. So we have to make sure we pay attention because that those first 4 bullets are worth 3 points, and that last bullet for conventions is worth the other 2 points. And so each reader can give you 5. Now, I'm not going to worry about it right now, but I want you to notice that he has a hat and he has hair, which are above his topic and his idea. So when I talk to you guys about 3 land, 4 land, and 5 land, what we're going to be checking for, are there any hooks? Are there any cool attention getters? Because your hat and your hair and your hook typically come before your idea and your topic, things that you write first to get the reader's attention. And then throughout the essay, every time that they use great vocabulary or word choices or vivid word choices or thoughts, opinions, emotions, if their voice or their vocabulary is effective, we can add extra M&Ms there because of the times that they're hooking us by exploding their essay, not just explaining evidence, if that makes sense. So that's my cool potato head, and that's how I would use him to basically understand the concepts of how to get to 5 land from each reader using these color-coded shirts, pants, jackets, shoes, the T for the topic, the I for the idea, and the X for remembering to explain our examples based on the topic and the idea. So for those of you who have the handouts from Saturday in that private / unlisted video, you already got the handouts, and he is on page 1. For those of you who haven't joined, you have no time limit. You can get, and this is page 1 of, like 28 pages that I have, that I went over most of them with the teachers on our 3-hour training, and I'll use today and probably tomorrow to finish up, to wrap up in terms of how to get off zero land, where there's nothing about a topic or an idea, but we can at least have an idea about the topic called a central idea statement, or a controlling idea statement, or a thesis statement, which uses the idea, one of these, along with the topic, all the other keywords, because some of them are based on certain W's. Because if all your kids say is soil is important to the earth, that is the topic. If you're not telling me why or what the ways are or how it's important, you're forgetting about the actual idea. And that's why there were 81,000 zeros through fives in 3rd grade. Number one, because they didn't have the experience of science, and they probably didn't write in 2nd or 1st grade based on scientific topics. And so they didn't really know what to bring to the table. Well, that means they had to actually read the passage. So the second problem is that the E that they don't have is endurance to read an introduction, a body, and a conclusion about soil and its important. And we got all of those ideas about plants, animals, and people inside one paragraph, inside one section of the essay. So that is my Mr. Pirate that I hope will help your elementary students. I'm not going to give that to middle school students. You're welcome to. But like I said, my middle school and high school trainings are going to have different ideas, different techniques and strategies because we're supposed to differentiate our instruction. We're supposed to explain things differently to different kids based on their abilities and or grade levels. Thank you guys. Please share this video with somebody who needs to understand the concept of informative, expository, and even opinion argumentative, because even if you give your opinion about the topic or your opinion about the topic, you still have to tell me why you chose that idea, that opinion, uh, because you're going to make a claim that's also known as a central idea, an opinion about a topic. Bless you guys and have a wonderful day.